Welcome to the Seahawkers podcast, Behind Enemy Lines edition. Clinton, this week we're going to be talking about the Jacksonville Jaguars as the Seahawks travel all the way across country down to the panhandle of Florida. Clinton Bonner, how you feeling about this game? Who do we got for a guest, and what do we got coming up?
Yeah, I am intrigued about this game. That's for darn sure. After they take down the 49ers, thank you, Jags, and then take down the Chiefs. Yeah, sure. Thank you, Jags. Nobody wants to see the Chiefs win anymore at this point. So two big W's in a row. And now all of a sudden, our 3-2 Seahawks have to go cross country and face a 4-1 Jacksonville Jaguars team. So it'll be interesting. But to your question, we got a great guest coming up. We got Gus Logue. He is a writing contributor on Big Cat Country, which is an SB Nation product. Shout out Mookie Alexander. You all know him from Field Goals. Mookie hooked us up with Gus. And Gus also owns and operates Duval22.com, which is a Jacksonville Jaguars site, very much focused on that, where he likes to dive into the film study, the nitty gritty, the analysis, and really get into the weeds of what's cooking, what's working for the Jags, and maybe what's not. We're gonna get into all that right now with our great guest star. Let's bring him on, Gus Logue. How you doing, bud?
What's up, guys? Yeah, the kitchen's very hot in Duval County right now, so it's you can't say this very often, but it's a good time to be a Jaguars fan, or even just to be in the city. But happy to be joining you guys tonight. Thanks for having me on.
You got it, man. You got it. Yeah, we were doing our other preview show earlier recording, and we were talking about Mark Brunell. We're like, man, this might be the good times are rolling when Mark Brunell was there, because I believe Mark Brunell was a UW guy. I think he was a Husky from his collegiate days. So even a little connection back to the glory days of the Jaguars fans. So quickly, your fandom. Born and raised down there? Is that your side of the country? Is that where you live? And how long you been, following the Jags?
Yeah, since I was two, really. So pretty much born and raised in Jacksonville. Went to Florida for college, so have always been in the neighborhood. And then once I got out of college, was almost immediately able to kind of get into the media market or what have you in Jacksonville. So very fortunate to be covering my hometown team. And I'm definitely like to, as you kind of said at the top, really get into the weeds and maybe not try to be controversial, but don't always go with popular opinion. So try to be a little contrarian is the right word.
There you go. Look at data, look at what the tape is actually telling you, and maybe not just follow the lemmings off a cliff when maybe your eyes and the data tell you a different story, right? So I think we're going to get along famously. One more pop culture question, since that's your area. How many Tom Petty tattoos do you have?
Zero, but I have zero. So 100% of the tattoos I don't have are Tom Petty tattoos.
No, that tracks. Are you warming up to a Tom Petty tattoo? Like, are we getting closer?
You're talking me into it.
Yes. Okay, all right.
Never considered it before.
Perfect.
Well, I just thought with the euphoria of starting 4-1 that maybe you might want to celebrate that in a certain way. And if it's Tom Petty tattoo, I wouldn't be mad about it. But there's a lot of interesting things.
Florida man thing to do. I'll give you that.
Yeah, for sure.
A lot of interesting things going down in Jacksonville this year, and I think we have to start, Gus, with your new coach. Liam Cohen comes in. What is the biggest difference that he has provided for the Jags this season in comparison to, say, Doug Peterson? Is it scheme? Is it energy? Is it his communication? Is it, what is it that sticks out to you about what's accelerated the Jags here to 4-1 under Liam Cohen?
Yeah, I mean, you kind of said it, it's a lot of different things for sure. One thing that really stands out is the impact on the running game, which last year Liam Cohen took the Buccaneers from a bottom 5 rushing offense to top 5. But I thought it was a little bit of fool's errand to just assume that the same thing would happen in Jacksonville, just because the Bucs have Tristan Wirfs, but also just a more talented offensive line across the board there in Tampa Bay. But the Jaguars actually signed Robert Hainsey from Tampa Bay in the offseason, who was replaced by Graham Barton, the first-round rookie last year. And right now, Hainsey honestly looks like a Pro Bowl center. And now a lot of that is because there's not really a lot of good center play around the league right now. But Hainsey's doing very well for just a very under-the-radar free agent signing. And the entire offensive line is exceeding expectations. And so that's resulted in Jacksonville being able to rip off a few really big games of large rushing production early in the season. And it hasn't been really as full of fireworks recently, but in general, it's one of the most well-coached running games in the NFL already, despite it having 2 new starters added in the offseason. And so you can see the scheme effects there. I think there's a little bit more that I want from the passing game, which I'm sure we'll get to at some point. But the running game looks excellent with kind of new and just like not very hyped up offensive line going into the year. And then culture is definitely a big thing. Like I think everyone kind of knew that Cohen was a offensive guru and could design a really good play on the chalkboard or whatever. But the real question, and the Jaguars themselves kind of said this right after he was hired, is like the real question is going to be whether he can be a leader of men and build a culture and be a rah-rah guy, CEO type, like whatever you want to throw out there to describe it. But can he do the things that are not on the chalkboard and that really matter to leading a team? And so the early returns on that have been good because Jaguars are 4-1 for the first time since 2007. And the defensive turnovers go into that a lot, and surely they'll regret at some point. I'm not sure when that will be, but at some point they're probably not going to have a turnover in a game. But beyond that, I think Cohen has already built a culture of like just toughness and resiliency, being able to bounce back from adversity. And so it's been really cool to see the early effects already be positive effects.
What I love too for our listeners too is like, look, they're never going to know, like most Seahawks fans, including myself, not going to know Hainsey as a center, that he's been this big upgrade. We do know that you talk about a center that you're seeing great returns from, and he got dinged. So I think he pulled a hamstring. Looks like he had a 7th rounder step in and actually play pretty good ball, which is awesome when someone that lowly drafted could come in and step in and play decently at least. But what is the status for Hainsey? Do you think you guys will be missing your center come Sunday?
Yeah, I mean, thank you for that note because he did exit in the second quarter, I believe, of the Monday Night Football game. But 7th-round rookie Robert Monheim from USC really stepped up, had a really clutch block against Chris Jones on the 33-yard catch to Brian Thomas in the fourth quarter for the go-ahead touchdown later in that drive. And so he didn't make any mistakes. Like, he just kind of held his own, and he was praised for it afterwards by coaches and teammates alike. And so in terms of Hainsey's week 6 availability, he's going to be, I think he was limited in practice today with a hamstring injury. And so I would honestly assume at this point that he will be able to go. But if he isn't, despite how well he has played, with how good Monheim was, not just on Sunday or on Monday night, but just behind the scenes throughout the offseason and the beginning of the season, I think they have trust that it won't be too much of an impact.
Well, I think we can speak for all Seahawks fans that your big boy Hainsey should take a week. Just ice it, see how it goes, put the 7th rounder in them and see what happens there. All right, we're going to rotate over. So look, I think we look at as outsiders completely, and with that, with a resurrection project of Sam Darnold continuing and being just freaking awesome, to be honest. And we look at Trevor Lawrence and it's like, okay, still don't know what to think of this guy. Obviously all the talent in the world, barely above 60% completion percentage. The mistakes are a little bit down. He's falling on the field, getting back up, stumbling again, rumbling, stumbling, dump, getting in Berman style for a touchdown late against the Chiefs. Are you guys 4-1 because of Trevor, or are you 4-1 in spite of some, what looks to be still up and down QB play?
Yeah, this one's really in the middle. I mean, I would say the Jaguars are not 4-1 because of Trevor Lawrence. I would say it's because the run game has been rejuvenated. The Jaguars lead the NFL in turnovers with 15. That's really been the biggest impact, is like almost old school football, honestly. Like, even though they do have sunshine, the prince that was promised, former first overall pick Trevor Lawrence, like the Jags are winning right now because of running the football and good defense, opportunistic defense especially. But even without the turnovers, like, again, I'm sure they'll go down at some point. The Jaguars are playing in a way that their opportunities are presented to them. They're coached really well in terms of knocking out the football with forced fumbles, but then also like the coverage, there's a lot of disguises, a lot of mugged up looks with backers dropping out in coverage, which is how Devin Lloyd got the 99-yarder against Mahomes on Monday night. And so back to Lawrence, though, like, he just needs to be more consistent, which has really been the story of his career. But he's just so up and down, and like really the epitome of his whole career for his playing style was kind of captured in that slip 6, as we're calling it, where he's
nice. Nice. I like that.
And like, not even just in the slip 6, but the entire game, because he started off like pretty shaky, where he was kind of like turning down open reads and just scrambling and putting his head down. Like, you could really feel his will to win that game, and it really meant a lot to him. I don't think it's just because it happened to be his birthday. I think it's just because it was a national stage against Mahomes, and he knew he was going to basically be judged for it, good or bad, win or loss. But he definitely wanted to win. So he literally put his head down too early sometimes by evading the pocket prematurely and just fighting for the yards themselves and saying, like, I'm putting the superhero cape on. I'm going to do it myself. And so that was really cool because it was a primetime game. Chiefs, they were down 14-0 against Spags. So, like, they needed that performance. Like, whether they won or lost, that's, like, the version of Trevor Lawrence they needed. In week 4 against the Niners, actually, he had kind of the inverse type of performance where he was, like, a game manager. The Jaguars had 4 turnovers and had a double-digit halftime lead. And so, like, they didn't need him to do anything. And he'll still deliver a few, like, wow throws every game, but he'll also deliver as many, if not more, like, boneheaded decisions. Like, on his second attempt of the game on Monday night, he threw a ball past the line of scrimmage. And he did the same thing in week 4 against the Niners. And so it's cool to see that he's able to, like, morph into a different quarterback of, like, game manager to, like, superhero, depending on, like, what the team needs. But at the same time, like, there's a lot of inconsistent play regardless of, like, what type of quarterback he is at the moment. And so it was cool to see how much fire he was playing with on Monday night, but that stage was massive. And so I think he's going to definitely dial it back down against the Seahawks in week 6.
Gotcha. So you talked a little bit about the running game being maybe the straw that's stirring the drink for the Jags right now offensively, with the pass game having kind of a slow start. We've kind of noticed from afar that Brian Thomas Jr. maybe not having the electric breakout year 2 leap that maybe a lot of us expected. How much concern does the organization and the fan base have over BTJ's uneven start to this season?
After the first 2 weeks, 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks, it was definitely a major concern. It's kind of quieted down a lot just because winning feels good and winning kind of cures a lot of problems, and that extends to the fan base. And so I think that, like, I feel like I haven't heard anything about BTJ other than praise for his clutch 33-yarder in the 4th quarter against the Chiefs. And so, like, he did have a play where, like, he was just out of sync with Trevor Lawrence on Monday night, and, like, fortunately was able to draw a defensive pass interference penalty, but it was kind of a bailout call because, like, I don't even know what route Thomas was supposed to be running. It seemed like he was supposed to run a stop route, like a curl route, but he actually ran an out route, and then Trevor Lawrence realized that he was going to throw an out route, so he was about to throw it. And then Brian Thomas realized that he was supposed to run a stop route, so he stopped running. So then Lawrence threw it too far, and it was just, long story short, a miscommunication. And so it's not all perfect yet, but that being said, like, the past 2 games were definitely a step in the right direction. And so while it was a very big question mark and probably the biggest storyline for the Jaguars in the first couple weeks of the season, that narrative, at least in town, has quieted a ton.
And, Gus, you probably watched or at least watched back that Baker Mayfield had himself a day in the Pacific Northwest. We are still dinged back there. We don't know if Julian Love's going to play. It's trending like probably not. Not sure if Witherspoon's going to play. It's looking like maybe not going to play. So we're going to be digging into our pockets, into our second and third stringers also. And we look around that offense, and on paper, especially last year, BTJ was very explosive. And then you guys go ahead and with the pick number 2, and you add Travis Hunter, and of course he's playing Ironman football, which is the Shohei Ohtani of the NFL. Where has he been more successful so far, and how is he trending on both sides of the ball? What do we need to know about him?
After Monday night, I would say he's been more successful on the offensive side of the ball. I mean, it feels hard to say defensive, like when he doesn't have an interception or even really a super impressive pass breakup, because he's had moments in coverage where he's, like, tied to the guy's hip or, like, not biting whatsoever on double moves or playing good press technique, et cetera, et cetera. But, I mean, he's had some just really nice highlights on offense, especially with, like, just on Monday, you saw the 44-yarder, which is the longest catch of his young career, just getting up, climbing the ladder over a guy and just paying off a Trevor Lawrence kind of sort of prayer. And then he also, like, ran a route out of the backfield and made 2 Chiefs defenders miss in open space. And so I think the Jags need to get the ball in his hands more, but I also think that the reason that, like, he's not just constantly being dialed up, like, screens and gadgety type plays is because the Jaguars do want him to actually develop a wide receiver and play wide receiver. And so they're really playing the long game on both sides of the ball. I think a lot of people, especially before Monday night, wanted him to maybe just focus on one side of the ball and try to master one at a time, which definitely makes a lot of sense and is fair. But again, like the Jaguars are playing the long game. They've always had a long-term plan in mind. And so I think that, especially considering they have a cushion of a 4-1 record right now, they're going to continue playing him on both sides of the ball. He did start on both sides on Monday night for the first time in the season, which was the first time in PFF 20 years of data that it's happened. And so he's trending up in terms of like the snaps, starting status, making highlights, just overall consistency. He is trending in the right direction. And Liam Cohen said as much at the podium. Cohen, like one of the things that's great about him is that he's like the most honest coach I've ever heard speak at a podium, especially in Jaguars coaching history, but really like any coaching presser I feel like I've heard. And so when he says something, you can usually take it without a grain of salt. So yeah, I think Hunter is continuing to press the team behind the scenes, and fortunately he was able to impress on a national stage against the Chiefs too.
Gotcha. So we talk a little bit about Travis Hunter, one of the biggest names on this Jaguars team, but all of us up here in the PNW, I would say that the Jaguars might be one of the teams that we follow the least, a lot being different conference, completely other side of the country, all of those things. Tell us a little bit about a Jaguar or a couple Jaguars maybe that we're not familiar with up here in Southeast Alaska that we should know.
I can't say Devin Lloyd anymore. That used to be my go-to, but now he's leading the league in interceptions. I would say Monteric Brown is getting more and more snaps at cornerback, even though Travis Hunter did start and he's playing the majority, or not the majority, but a good amount of defensive snaps. He's not playing full-time, but Jordan Lewis and Tyson Campbell are like the top two cornerbacks. But Monteric Brown is rotating in. He had a really nice pass breakup against Mahomes on like a seam route to Tyquan Thornton on Monday night. And he's apparently been really impressive inside the building. I think he has a lot of fans within the organization. And so he's just like a really under the radar name to know. I think Eric Murray has been a really impressive safety for the Jaguars this season. He's like a 10th year NFL veteran. They signed him from Houston. And he's just been like exactly what they need in terms of like a last line of defense guy. He's a really sure tackler, had a couple of takeaways earlier in the season. And so he's just been really sound for a position that needed some consistency in the offseason. So that was a huge under the radar addition. And then on the offensive side of the ball, I would say De'Ami Brown, even though he's been kind of at a slow pace the past 2 games, it's been, I think, mostly because of his injury. He had a shoulder injury in week 3 and didn't play in week 4. And so Monday night was his return. I expect him to be more healthy and play more snaps and be more involved this week against the Seahawks. He did have a drop against the Chiefs. He had a pretty brutal one, a drop touchdown against the Bengals in week 2. And so I feel like I've said consistency about 5 times already on this podcast, but there's a couple of guys I'm looking for a little bit more consistency from, despite the team being 4-1. And De'Ami Brown is one of them, but he's playing, again, the majority of snaps because Travis Hunter is mostly just, or he is just a slot wide receiver, and they're also mixing in Parker Washington. But De'Ami Brown is one of the 2, for sure, top wideouts on the team. And so I'm interested to see if he can kind of bounce back a little bit in week 6.
The way De'Ami Brown ended last year with the Commanders, I was, he was kind of, didn't really do much his first couple of years, like basically 2.5 years. Of course, you don't have a quarterback to throw you the ball. All of a sudden you get Jaden Daniels, and lo and behold, good receivers come out when you improve your quarterback. Hello, Terry McLaurin, right? And the way he ended last year when the Jaguars signed De'Ami Brown, I was like, man, I think they got themselves a pretty low key, under the radar, good wide receiver who looks like he's ascending into his career. So we'll definitely be watching out for him as well. And again, a bit of an uneven start for him as a Jaguar, but we'll see. Another offensive guy that's really interesting to us. Look, we love our tight ends. Like not just, the Seahawks kind of have a shaky history, honestly, with like not having great tight end play, but when we do get one, we really tend to dig in and love them because of how it allows us to play the type of football that we want to go play. So right now we got AJ Barner up in Seattle, 2nd-year guy from Michigan, not just a touchdown maker, but a really good inline blocker who also has soft hands, also can beat linebackers and get open in the red zone and be an awesome red zone target for Sam. Brenton Strange was your guys' leading receiver receptions-wise. He goes out. He's going to be out for a couple of weeks. What changes for the Jaguars without Strange?
Yeah, in the passing game, honestly, not a ton. It's not like Strange is really getting schemed up looks. He really is not a very good separator against man coverage, and he has pretty solid hands and like pretty good contested catch ability. So if you're able to just like put it on his frame or within his catch radius, he should be able to come down with it. So he's serviceable, but like he's not necessarily breaking away from anyone. A lot of his receptions, honestly, like he is effective on screens. I'll go with that. He's pretty good yards after catch player. But it's like beyond screens, it's a lot of like checkdowns essentially, or just quick game 5 yards into the soft areas of zone. And so he's an effective short area target as like just a check down option, a security blanket, what have you. But it's not like, even though he was leading the team in receptions, he wasn't necessarily a game-changing force out wide out. But that said, he is a game-changing force. In the Jaguars have arguably, I said they had one of the most well-designed running games, and part of that is because it's one of the most diverse run games. They do really like running mid-zone from under center. They've been pretty hot with that in the past couple of weeks, especially, and that kind of seems to be like what they're majoring in, or what their fastball is, whatever you want to call it. But they're able to do a lot of different stuff, a lot of stuff outside along the edges, especially just to maximize the athleticism of Travis Etienne and Bashal Tutin. And so it's a diverse run game, and Brenton Strange is a big part of that, with like the misdirection, being used as the jet guy on motion, and then just being able to block his butt off, whether it's against players in the secondary or even against defensive linemen. He's very effective in whatever you want to ask him to do, which makes him super valuable, because one thing the Jaguars look for, one of the biggest things they look for just across the roster, is versatility and the ability to play basically various positions within your position. And Brenton Strange is one of the best examples of that on the team. And so without him, I don't really expect the Jaguars to change necessarily. Like maybe they'll like not play, have like one or two less kind of like fancy trick runs with like a lot of motion and a lot of pullers and stuff like that, like an end around or something. Maybe they won't trust their backups, Hunter Long and Johnny Munt, who are both signed in the offseason. But the two of them are both like fairly versatile in their own right, as in terms of like being able to move in space, but then also being a viable threat in the receiving game. And so the Jaguars ran a decent amount of like 12 and even 13 personnel with multiple tight ends on the field. They're not like running 11 personnel as much as like Sean McVay usually does, or even as much as Cohen did last year, really. And so when they were already playing a good amount of multiple tight end sets, like I expect both Hunter Long and Johnny Munt to continue to see a pretty good chunk of snaps.
Yeah, it sounds like Strange has been an integral part of the running game. And so we talk about one thing that's strange too. What another thing that I think all of us outside of Duval think is strange, and that's that the Jacksonville Jaguars are 4-1. From the outside looking in, it feels like this is kind of fueled by a lot of turnovers. There's only been one quarterback to not throw two plus picks against you guys. Do you think that the main reason for this hot start is the turnovers? And if so, is that sustainable?
Yeah, I would definitely say, if you had to point to one thing, I think probably like the impact of the new coaching staff and the new regime in general, and just the new vibes, like would be a close second. But I mean, yeah, as I said earlier in the pod, turnovers would be the first thing I point to. And again, like I think that while naturally they will regress, because like you just statistically could not rely on turnovers game after game. The Jaguars, because they have mugged up fronts, because they have disguised coverages, et cetera, and they're able to not just like play against the weaknesses of their opponents, but like their own weaknesses. And Devin Lloyd's example was like another example of that, because in week 2 against Cincinnati, Jamar Chase scored on a slant route against the same look that the Jaguars presented on the Lloyd interception. And then on the Chase touchdown, the Jags ran like a cover 0 all-out man blitz. But then on the Lloyd interception, Lloyd and Devon Hamilton, the defensive tackle, dropped out into coverage. Mahomes thought he had Juju Smith-Schuster wide open and just never saw Lloyd. And so he said after the game that he was fooled by the coverage. And so a lot of quarterbacks have been fooled by the coverage so far this season. And it's been partly like disguised coverages, but then also like an impact from the pass rush. And so I think whether or not Trayvon Walker suits up is definitely like the biggest if leading up to this game. because the Jaguars had their lowest pressure rate of the season against the Chiefs in Week 5 without Trayvon Walker, who had surgery on his wrist last week. Pat Mahomes also scrambled for over 50 yards, and so Mahomes was able to basically do whatever he pleased. And I think that the same thing could end up happening with Sam Darnold if Trayvon Walker is not back. And so, point being, like, with Trayvon Walker on the field, Trayvon and Josh Hines Allen, at least, like, the two of them are able to kind of wreak enough havoc to kind of help create pressure on the quarterback and help thus create turnovers. Mason Smith has also, the second-year defensive tackle, has had a couple of plays that his pressure led to a turnover. And so it's a lot of different things for the defense. So long story short, the turnovers are like the biggest thing that has led to the 4-1 start. And even though they're bound to regress, the Jaguars are still a very good, certainly above average defense that will continue to be one of the league leaders in turnovers starting in Week 6 going forward.
So thank you, Gus. You actually led us right into a conversation about Trayvon that we wanted to ask you about. Anyway, so we'll skip that question because you answered it directly. We were like, who picks it up if not him? So thank you for going that way with it. Something that's interesting that I think we could talk about a little bit instead, Adam, is Gus is talking about disguised coverages and the sim pressures they're running. Now, have you faced a quarterback yet who, like with Sam Darnold, that's what he faces all the time in practice because that is Mike Macdonald's MO. It's the sim pressures. It is, we're going to trick you. We're going to fool you into thinking something else is there. And of course your scout teams will mock what the other team is doing. Do you think you faced a quarterback yet that is kind of living that every single day? Because that is literally what Mike Macdonald wants to bring. He does bring.
Yeah, no, I not off the top of my head, I don't think so. I think the biggest challenge, honestly, for opposing offenses is not even like really necessarily about the quarterback and how he's able to handle those simulated pressures. It's really about the offensive line. And certainly the quarterback is part of like setting the protection and kind of pointing at guys who can blitz and so on and so forth. But the offensive line is ultimately up to them to like not just block the guy in front of them, but be aware of potential loops and stunts. The Jags have been running really good games up front all season. Like Eric Armstead especially has been like racking up a ton of sackle assists, if you will, just mauling other guys over to clear the lane, especially for Trayvon Walker. That's been a really good double team this season. And so, again, hopefully Walker's back because those games are especially effective with him. But the Jaguars are able to do that.
Very good. Well, we're going to play a little bit of fill in the blank here, Gus. So, Jags win this game if blank.
I'm going to say I don't think they're going to stop Jackson Smith and Jigba at all. But if they can just prevent him from making a lot of explosive plays or really just prevent a lot of deep pass completions from Sam Darnold in general, I think that'll go a really long way because I feel like Sam Darnold has been one of, if not the most efficient quarterbacks on deep passes this season. And Jackson Smith and Jigba is kind of the same deal as a receiver. And so, I don't think JSN is going to be slowed down in general, but if they can just limit the explosive plays from him especially, I think that'll go a long way.
Oh, we got one more for Gus. Remember, folks, we're talking with Gus Logue. He is a writer at Big Cat Country from SB Nation. He also operates Duval22.com, where he does lots of Jaguars film study and analysis. So all your Jags fans out there, Duval22, those are the numbers, 22.com. Check that out for sure. One last one for you, Gus. The inverse. The Seattle Seahawks win this game if ...
They capitalize on opportunities that Trevor Lawrence presents because, again, he does have several boneheaded decisions each game. And so it feels like half of them, honestly, kind of like he gets bailed out a little bit by like a pass interference or like the ball not bouncing into a defender's arms or like getting dropped by a defender. But the Seahawks will certainly have an opportunity or three for a takeaway. And so I think if they're able to produce on that, then that'll go a long way.
Very nice. Well, this has been an awesome conversation. We appreciate you coming on, man, because, again, we just don't know that much about this team. It's really, of all 31 other teams, it's one that's just kind of flies under the radar a lot for Seahawks fans. And you brought a great level of us understanding who we should look for, who are the top dogs, but also who are those special players in the nooks and crannies that make up the fabric of the team that is 4-1. So leave you with this, man. Look, Gus, there's all this conversation, this preemptive discussion that when it all shakes out, the Jacksonville Jaguars are going to at least split time, if not become the London franchise. What would you say to all the Jags fans that are like, this is Duval County? What's the rallying cry at a 4-1 season happening when you got a good Seahawks team coming into town? What do you want to see in the stands and as a fan come Sunday?
I expect it to be the same thing it was Monday night, which was just a full stadium full of Jags fans. I mean, there's certainly some red. The Chiefs do travel very well, but Jags fans showed up, and it was definitely a loud stadium. I think it was probably the best environment the team has had since their dramatic comeback win over the Chargers during the 2022 season playoffs. And so it was really cool for the team to have that type of environment again, because the fans deserve a good team, but then the team also deserves good fans. And the Jaguars fans are certainly very good, but they understandably don't always show up to football games since the team, again, hasn't been 4-1 since 2007. And so it's a win-win for both sides when the fans show up. And so certainly expecting that, even if with the 1 o'clock kickoff. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Duval County is looking forward to it, and I'm sure it'll be a lot of fun.
Very nice. So Adam, any new learning since we had Gus here that you're taking away as a big takeaway, something new that you might have gleaned from Gus's knowledge, man? What do you got?
Yeah, well, I think for me personally, I wasn't quite aware that the middle linebacker Lloyd was actually leading the league in interceptions. I knew he'd been doing some good stuff, and I knew he'd had a couple picks, but I had no clue that he was actually leading the league in picks at the middle linebacker spot. That's insane. That really is insane. So I'd say that stands out to me for sure. And it makes me worry about the middle of the field in a way that I didn't before coming into this game.
Yeah, Gus, we do a different preview show that we call Seahawkers What If, and that's an awesome show that folks could check out on our channel as well, where we go into like 6 unique questions about the game. And one of the things I was saying was like, look, I think Sam Darnold has had a lot of success, and we've had a lot of success in 12 personnel. And then when we're in 12, we'll run the ball really well, and our quick game is firing. And sometimes we're in 11, but it's really kind of a cheating. It almost looks like 12 because it's super condensed, and Cooper Kupp is right in line, and he's a really good blocker anyway. Or he could just get out, go 7 yards, turn around, and get some yak as well, as tight ends will do too. So we discussed the ability for us to kind of hit you with some quick game to try and, I don't know, just kind of unearth or just, kind of disturb what you guys have had success with those linebackers. What do you think about that? Have other teams have they had success working the middle of the field? Obviously 4 interceptions is what they are, but can the team be had a little bit if the quick game is firing?
Yeah, honestly, like Mahomes was the first quarterback that the Jags faced that did have success against the linebackers in the middle of the field. The Jags have been really good about that all season. But I will say, like, a linebacker to watch out for is Dennis Gardeck, who comes on the field in heavy packages to replace the nickel cornerback. And so when the Seahawks do trot out 12 personnel, I'll keep your eye out on Gardeck. He's number 47. He's the guy with long blonde hair that isn't Trevor Lawrence. And so he's a really good run stopper, but he's like he's more of a run stopper, a guy that you play on the line of scrimmage as opposed to a coverage defender. But because of like all the different ways the Jaguars use their linebackers as like guys that not just rush the passer, but also drop out in coverage to free up some like simulated pressure looks. Gardeck will be in coverage for a few reps. And so I think the Seahawks will be able to have success throwing balls in his direction.
Yeah. So, I mean, for the Jags fans that are watching this as part of the crossover, I'd say watch out for that because we get into 12 a lot. And again, sometimes like a mock 12 with a condensed 11 anyway, and we'll get out there in 13 personnel with 3 tight ends. So it does force the hand. I think that's what Kubiak is looking to do a lot of times is get you into your most base look. And then do you get a bit more traditional when you're in base, or can you continue to do the disguised coverages when you have to roll out another linebacker because you might be expecting run because of more of a power game, even though we run wide zone, we're schemed up to block well. We have more bodies than you on the line. So for the Jags fans out there, something to watch for sure. Love getting into the analysis and the bit of the X's and O's with you. I know that's your jam, dude. So we thank you a ton. We wish you good luck the rest of the season. Of course, we want Seattle to come across the country, and maybe you guys got your W versus the Niners. You got a great win versus Kansas City. So, Adam, what if they just we knock them down one peg, and 4-2 is still pretty good for those Jags? Yeah.
I mean, it'd just be fair, to us. And I don't know why it would be fair. I just think it would be for me. It's how it feels. But with that said, we do appreciate you guys beating the Niners. Appreciate you being on, Gus, and really giving us an insight into a team that we don't get a lot of exposure to. And we're looking forward to this Sunday, and good luck for the upcoming game.
Yeah, man.
Appreciate you guys. Yeah, I'm looking forward. I mean, hopefully for my sake and our sake over here, Sam Darnold will see ghosts again. We'll see. He doesn't have a good history in that stadium, but I'm sure it'll be a great game. Thanks for having me on, guys.
As long as we get Jackson Duval in his Speedo thong, then I think we've all lost, really. So, and I think with that,
there's only one thing left to say.
Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.